Hi, neighbor. Save up to 70% on classic furniture and decor for a limited time. It's our big Black Friday sale at Birch Lane, a Wayfair specialty brand. Prep your home for holiday guests with made-to-last sofas, timeless guest bedroom essentials, festive wreaths, and more. And best of all, get free shipping on everything, even the big stuff. It's classic style for joyful living. Black Friday is at Birch Lane through December 2nd. Shop online at birchlane.com.
It's never too early for Lowe's Black Friday deals. Snag some of our biggest savings of the season right now, like 25% off select pre-lit artificial Christmas trees. And get yourself free select DeWalt, Cobalt, or Craftsman tools when you buy a select battery or combo kit before the Black Friday rush. Because everyone loves free stuff, right? Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 12/3 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Hey folks, welcome to Some Podcast. My name is Mark, joined as ever by my co-host and friend Chris. Are we friends?
Yeah, out of obligation now, because 8 years into this, if we weren't, it would be a really tough shift.
Oh yeah, horrible time. It would be a horrible time.
Luckily we got somebody to break the sexual tension between us this week, Mark.
We do, yeah.
You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Anthony Sahyoun. I haven't been friends with neither Mark nor Chris for 8 years. For maybe a couple of months now, we've been going back and forth with the emails. But God bless you guys. 8 years of friendship. That's nice. You guys take care of each other.
Absolutely. I've persevered with Mark almost as much as I persevered with you, Anthony, to get this interview, to make this happen. Since I first spoke to you outside a venue in Glasgow in August of 2024. Yeah, so before we hit record, Anthony was telling us his preferred way to pronounce his first name is Anthony.
That's the way my mother calls me.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a nice regal air to it. So, we'll be fudging names all the way through the show. Neither Mark nor myself can speak Arabic nor pronounce it. So please be gentle with us. So Anthony is a member of a band called SANAM. Is that where the emphasis goes?
Yeah, there we go. In Arabic, it's SANAM.
SANAM.
Yeah.
Okay. So we first met, as I say, outside a venue called Stereo in Glasgow in August of 2024. Was that your first time in the UK with the band?
No, with SANAM, no. We did we did in 2023 in November 2023, we did Glad's Cafe in Glasgow.
I didn't know that, yeah.
Yeah, and we did Cafe Otto in the UK, in London, I mean. And we also did somewhere in Brighton. I can't remember the name of the venue, but we did 3 shows.
I didn't realise that was your second trip here.
Yeah.
But of course, you've played it. In fact, the whole band has played in other projects at various stages. We'll talk about that shortly. But long story short, the night you played, it might even have been this podcast, we were meant to be doing something and it got cancelled, and I just had a look at what was on. I was like, these guys sound interesting, and went along by myself. And at the end of the year, Anthony, when we did our, sum up your best albums, all that kind of stuff of the year, you guys were my favourite show of that year. And it was especially nice because it was so unplanned. I just went along and was just really, really struck by the performance, by the music, which I didn't know at all. I just liked the description. So yeah, that's kind of why I went above and beyond to try and, have a word with you after it, and then to persevere and try and get you on the show here, because I really loved what you did that night, and I just it was obvious that there was a lot of really interesting conversation I felt to come out of the band as well, because for the audience who may not be aware, SANAM are from Beirut. They kind of came together in Beirut in Lebanon and have, made that jump into Europe and now into North America actually recently. And that's not all that normal for us. It's a bit exotic. I'm sure you don't like to be fetishized in that way, but it is nice to hear something that is kind of loosely like alternative music coming from that part of the world. We do get things passing through, but it tends to be quite traditional, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's certainly nice to hear more contemporary stuff when it comes from a place that you're not too familiar with. So just really pleased that we've managed to make this happen. I really appreciate you making the time to do it, because I know you've got a busy schedule. We'll also get to that shortly. For the benefit of the audience, and Anthony, you're probably sick of repeating this story in interviews, so I'll be really quick here, and feel free to stop me and correct me at any point here. But SANAM, the project, as I say, it traces its origins to, is it the Irtijal Festival? Is that how you pronounce it?
Irtijal, yeah. Irtijal means it means to improvise. It's the verb to improvise in Arabic.
Right. So an improvisational festival in Lebanon, and it was Hans Joachim Irmler from Faust, and he was taking part in this. And I believe the co-founder is his name Sharif Senawi.
Yeah, there we go, Sharif Sahnawi.
Yeah, that's not so bad so far. Sharif then asked you personally if you could bring together a band from different backgrounds in the area to play with Irmler for, was it a 3-day residency, I believe?
Yeah, what happened was Sharif and Fadi were talking for a minute about this. We wanted to get Irmler to Irtijal maybe in 2020, but after COVID that had to be pushed, so it got pushed to then. And back at the time with Irmler, we wanted to do it with a different band. It was my band. I used to play also another kind of like, it was an instrumental band. We used to do stuff that's like kind of, I would say, free rock, around the free rock thing.
Mm-hmm. That's kinematic, is that right?
Yeah, there we go. That's it, yeah. And then that didn't happen, so it got pushed a bit. And then when the time came back, Sharif approached us again, and he's like, "We can't do it this time, obviously with Kinematic, because by then Kinematic had kind of started to evaporate. Not for what should I say? It wasn't because of any musical disagreements or any disagreements, but the members were like, the drummer was in Paris, and the synth player was in Saudi, I think, maybe, or yeah, I think he was in Saudi, because after the blast in Beirut, a lot of people just kind of started leaving, so that couldn't happen anymore. So Sharif had the idea with Fadi. Fadi Tabal is also a part of the festival. They both, Sharif is kind of like the artistic director and Fadi is the technical director. And they were like, how about we try and make a band to play with Irmler? And then they said, like, let's take someone out of every scene and kind of put them all together and see what happens, which is kind of adventurous and a little bit scary, but all good things maybe start like this. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that unconventional mix has clearly produced something very unconventional as a result. I saw a comment by Farah. She'd said, I realised that we were going to make something abstract, but I wanted to stay away from world music. And as a result, it does have something very contemporary about it. Little bits of electronica, little bits of like noise rock almost, not as caustic maybe as people think of noise rock, but certainly some of the bands like Unwound and things like that, there's a lot of that to it as well. So it's a really, really interesting thing that came out of those very unplanned circumstances. I see a lot of attempts at descriptions. This was quite entertaining actually when I was researching the band. I saw a free rock post-folk sextet. I saw a avant-garde psychonauts sandwiching Arabic sounds between jazz, post-rock and a whole lot of kraut. And Constellation Records, who you're now working with, basically just used every genre they could think of and said merges psych, kraut, improv, skronk, electronics, goth and jazz elements with traditional Egyptian song and modern Arabic poetry in a compelling brew of widescreen hybrid avant rock.
All of the words.
Yeah, basically every word. Yeah. Do you have a description that you're comfortable using when you're asked that question?
Oh, gee, God, man, this question is, you know, I know what we're not doing. I kind of know what we're trying not to do. So
skronk.
Honestly, I know this is gonna look like this is not gonna sound good, but I didn't know what skronk meant before they proposed it.
I've done a music podcast for 8 years and I have no idea what skronk is.
I've literally never heard that genre before in my life. So
apparently, skronk means like purposefully dissonant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow, there is a fair bit of that on Constellation, to be fair. So, I mean, personally, I actually, and this may be a leap for you, I'm not sure if you're even familiar with the band, but I do see some parallels with the band Lancome.
Yeah, of course we know Lancome. Yeah, sure.
At my head and feet, and on my breast, a snow white glove to tell this world that I died.
Yeah, okay, good. So that the way that they've embraced, well, ethnic sound, folk sounds, but blended them in with the modern as part of a sort of dark folk resurgence. I don't want to say neo-folk because neo-folk has other connotations, but there is like a contemporary sound of folk music that really has found an audience. And for me, when I saw you, I was really into Lancome at that moment as well, and I was like, this fits really perfectly with this world of people reinterpreting kind of classic sounds in a much more modern context. It's interesting that you know Lancome. Have you ever seen them?
No, I haven't seen. No, we've never seen them. We've never catch them live. There were discussions of us trying to find a way maybe of doing something, but it never fell through. But yeah, we know the music. It's funny also because they're Irish, right? And there's this. There's been since 48. There's been like this kind of marriage or bond, let's say, between Ireland and Palestine, and like kind of the leftist front in Palestine, like the PLO and all of these things. Yeah. So
they're a very political band, yeah, and they speak out regularly about Palestine and other causes as well.
So it's not very surprising to me that that we found that you make this connotation. Also, I think a part of it is not only the let's say the aesthetic maybe, or the concept. I think a part of it is also the politics and these things. I don't know. For me, I think they come out. Maybe they're not very literal, or maybe they're not very present, but they're definitely there.
Oh no, that's something I'm going to ask you about shortly. I do think they come out. I think you'd be a very good pairing with them. I think they would like the band a lot. We had them on the show actually before. It was also a really good interview. So as I mentioned earlier on, when SANAM came together, you were a member of Kinematic, which is kind of like kraut post-rock. As you say, it's instrumental. It is post-rock, but it's got a much more rolling kind of German sort of feel to it. Really nice band. I really, really enjoyed what I heard of it. Farah Kador, is that her second name?
Farah Kador, yeah.
Farah Kador. So she plays the bouzouki, was also in a project called Tilt. I noticed that she's one of the only female bouzouki players in the world, as I understand, or at least at a kind of professional sort of standard. Mm-hmm. She had some really interesting comments about the instrument, and I know she's not here to say them for herself, so I just wanted to throw this in. She'd said bouzouki is a folk instrument played by travellers and common people, not in castles or kingly courts. The bouzouki doesn't have a written methodology, and we maintain its free spirit within the album. We don't study the instruments at conservatoires, which is actually, funnily enough, a really relevant conversation to what we had with Lancome, where they came from a background of playing in bars, playing locally. Two of the guys were in DIY punk bands, transitioned into folk, but it was all from a very grassroots way. It wasn't learned from the conservatoire, whereas there is a big folk music movement in Britain that comes from conservatoires, and as a result it can maybe be seen to be a bit more rigid. So it's really interesting that you guys are bringing this into your music, but from a very organic kind of public place rather than institutions.
Yeah, so as I was saying, none of us are really institutionalized in that sense. In Beirut, there's not anyway a lot of this high art thing. I understand in Europe there's a lot like of this the high art kind of what should we call it? High art? Is it like like the people who sing operas and shit? And
I think so. Yeah, it's probably maybe a slightly pejorative way to look at it. They would think, but I know exactly what you mean by that, and I would probably agree.
Yeah, it's not that to each their own. But in Beirut, there's not a lot of this. There is the conservatory, but there isn't like a huge jazz school or anything. Like people are kind of mostly self-taught, and the buzu in specific And I mean the Arabic phrasing and when I say Arabic phrasing, it's hard for me to explain it a lot in English, but I mean even let's say the maqams and these things, these are not very. Some people try to rigidize them, there are attempts to make these practices institutionalized, but they're still in the most in how they're consumed. There's still a lot of it is still very popular. It's not something that you go to school to teach. Even the melodies, they're kind of brought down from generation to another, and sometimes very hard to pinpoint if a melody is original or if it's actually recycled. So we have actually kind of a way to deal with this. I think in general in the region, I don't want to pretend to be a historian to understand any of these things, but my sense is that from let's say the Semite countries till even Egypt, there's this thing where you have a lot of melodies that are recycled, and then they pretend to be original music, but they're really recycled melodies, and you can pay attention a lot to that, or you can consider it kind of sampling, but before samplers, kind of just sampling. This is how people deal with music anyway in our region. So yeah, a big practice is for you to learn listening to someone play, and then you just emit kind of by imitation or kind of something of the kind, not a pen and paper thing. Yeah. And the buzu in specific, the buzu is like a farmer's instrument, let's say, or I don't know if farmer is the proper term, but definitely not something for the palaces and the court. Yeah, it's not that.
It's apparently a very difficult instrument to play, I believe.
Difficult is these are questions that are not for me really. I'm not a very good player, man, so I can't really talk about how to. None of us are in the band are like this kind of
musos. We would say a muso.
Yeah,
this is what it's called, a muso.
Somebody that's overly obsessed with the technical side of it or the intricacies of it. Yeah, a muso.
Muso.
Yeah, sure. No, we don't approach it this way. I mean, fortunately, in Beirut, you cannot approach it this way also. So I think, I think we try to avoid the gear thing and all of these things, even though you introduce electronic elements as we were talking. But yeah, and also Sandy comes from singing. Sandy Shamon, the singer of SANAM, also has a repertoire of very old Egyptian texts, and that she sings in a traditional way, and that also she sometimes brings into more experimental or contemporary projects. And Sandy also sings, and Farah plays at towns in Lebanon, where it's mostly traditional music, let's say, or mainly it's a Sheikh Imam partition. Sheikh Imam is an Egyptian oudist and musician who was incarcerated for being too much on the left. Yeah. And he wrote a lot of songs about, a lot of populist songs that are very famous in our region. And that's, very famous, quote unquote, let's say, very famous amongst, let's say, definitely the left, and these parties back in the day. Right now, it's become a little bit kind of a conservation kind of work to play these tunes. I mean, a lot of tunes are very familiar with everyone, especially the more revolutionary ones, the ones that more call for revolution. But the guy has a huge repertoire of music, and he was blind also, and he was a sheikh. So it's the mix of the guy is very interesting, and his politics are incredible. So Sandy has this project where Farah also plays with her, where she sings Sheikh Imam songs, and she kind of keep it a tradition for. So as you're saying, the bar thing, Sandy and Farah do this as well, but not necessarily maybe in bars, sometimes more in towns,
Yeah. Yeah, I saw something that she includes some really interesting stuff in her work, doesn't she? She's got Omar Khayyam stuff from the 12th century. There's a Palestinian folk song in your first album as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And what else do we have? Saeed Darwish, Basim Hajar, Paul Shaul. I mean, there are a lot of people that get cited or referenced or included in her lyrics. It's a very, there's a lot of depth to them.
Yeah, Sandy has a wide screen. Sandy really has a wide screen. Very few, well, of course, I'm biased, but I don't care. Very few people have like a good wide screen, be it on technology or culture or whatever, like that can see really through the thing. Sandy can appropriate a text that's 1,000 years old and can take text from a poet who's like a contemporary Arab poet and then write her own words and kind of in a way put them all in a record and have them all make sense. There's this, I think that's a huge part of Sanam really, like is also this, right? To be able to kind of have a widescreen view on your culture, you know, and this comes mainly not only from instrumentation, it comes from the words also because Sandy plays with this a lot. She knows how to, I don't know what's the word. I don't know if it's collaging or if it's really like appropriating or maybe inappropriate, like putting them out of context, you know, of like sometimes really, really old text and sometimes very contemporary texts. And for us, it sounds very coherent, and it's actually refreshing to be able to look at texts that are meant to be digested maybe in a different way and then kind of consume them in the way that you want to consume them and not in the way that they were meant to, maybe. I don't know. That's maybe far-fetched.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting as well how she's pulling bits from across that region because, I mean, the Levantine people have so much in common. You know, the borders in that area of the world are, what would you call it, quite porous culturally, to say the least. And I think it's very interesting to see, you know, Egyptian stuff here, Palestinian stuff there, Syrian stuff there. Yeah, to get everybody else in the band just their moment as well, you mentioned Antonio Haj.
Yeah, Antonio Haj Musa is our bassist. He has also a band called Ovid, who do like kind of also kind of krautrocky things. Krautrocky. I think they have a record that's supposed to come out very soon, but it sounds amazing.
Into the sea.
And Antonio is also into that kind of thing. He's just got a kid just now, so he's a new.
Congratulations!
Yeah, new dad. We have a dad.
He'll be exhausted. Yeah,
yeah.
He also played and produced. Was it Sarah Mansour and Tamara Kadumi?
Yeah, he also plays with Tamara Kadumi. She's like a dream pop singer.
And you've got Pascal and Marwan. They were both in the band Postcards, which is a band that Mark already knew, funnily enough.
Yeah, I came across, I think they released an album earlier on this year, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I was looking for some gothy kind of stuff, and it was a recommendation, oddly, that came up. I don't know if I'd really call Postcards all that goth.
No, it's kind of dream poppy, shoegazy, yeah.
But I guess there's maybe a bit of crossover there, maybe like the Cocktail Twins or sometimes because they're goth, even though they're probably not, and I can kind of see where people might construe it that way. But
yeah, Beach House and stuff as well.
But still, I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Also, just to say one thing that I saw about Sandy, she was quoted at one point as saying that she never wanted to be a singer, but was interested in the use of the voice as an instrument. And you mentioned Makam, which is something that I didn't actually know a hell of a lot about until I encountered your band. And this is, I mean, we would probably call it microtonal. Use it, for the audience who aren't aware, that's using different divisions in an octave, actually far more divisions in an octave, which can often make it sound slightly out of tune to us because our ears are not adapted to that. We're used to the kind of what they call the 12-tone temperament. Is it difficult when you're writing to sort of make that microtonal stuff fit with a 12-tone? Because we just work with these 12 notes that either do or don't match, whereas it's a lot more complicated. And hearing the two overlap with Sandy's vocal being so intricate, but you're using guitars and things that are divided up by 12 tones. I know that you're not a muso, but is that an extra challenge?
No, I mean, mainly it boils down to what not to do, not what to do. So if you focus on what not to do, it's a lot easier. If you try to make a quarter tone guitar, then that's tough to make, or because we have some players who kind of bend a little bit to get like that quarter tone. You just do a little bend, but then that becomes kind of fusiony, and this is not something you want to do, right? So this is what I was saying, like, or it becomes kind of world music again. And or sometimes Marwan just tunes the tone, he tunes the string a little bit down. But I mean, for us, it comes naturally. The phrasing. So maqams are not really scales. You would think they're kind of like scales, but they're not really scales. They're more like modes than scales, because you go up in a way and then you go down in a way. So usually in 12-tone systems, it's if you do you go down and up the same way. In maqams, it's you go up in a way and then you go down another way. So it's not really a scale, but it involves quarter tones. Yeah, it's for us it sounds natural, sure, but I mean I understand, because I if I listen to like Indian scales, they might sound a little bit weird if I'm playing them, let's say, on a piano. But if you hear someone singing, then it sounds completely normal, right? So a part of it has to do with timbre too. It depends on what kind of instrument you're using. If you force a quarter tone on a guitar, it's going to sound like why, or a quarter tone on a piano, it's going to be like a little bit like this. But when you do it with a bouzouki, it's you kind of don't even notice it at times, So I think it comes with the nature of how these instruments are designed, and the history of because an instrument is like a language. It's not like it hasn't been like this all throughout time, right?
Yeah.
It develops and it changes, and the version that it is in now is basically what makes it resonate, or what makes it appropriate for it to play these things for the instrument. But a lot of it, comes from that. A lot of it comes from our upbringing. But we don't force it. We don't try to make it quarter tonal. We don't try to not make it quarter tonal. Like if it works, it works. If it does, I do some quarter tones on synthesizers at times. Sometimes I don't. Depends on the tune. Sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah, but I have to say, I didn't even notice it for the first while I was listening to the band. It was only when I started trying to analyze the songs in a bit more depth for this that I realized I was like, there's two different systems there, and the fact that it is so seamless, the fact that it doesn't feel forced and it's not immediately obvious is remarkable. You're communicating in a slightly more detailed palette, and it gives you a whole range of options that frankly a lot of people working in the 12-tone system don't have. So let alone for people who are listening who are like, I don't really know what they're talking about, go and listen to it and bear that in mind, because it is really fascinating to hear the two worlds come together like that, and come together so well.
Sometimes we like for them to also do this, because
to jar, yeah. Well, that's the dissonance, right? That's the skronk.
Whenever I think about it, I kind of think about it as like I'm Western and I know that 12-note scale because all the bands that I really enjoy have done that forever. I always think of anything that's not like that as like the notes in between the notes that I know, if that makes sense. So your ear wouldn't naturally gravitate towards it, but it feels like, I don't know, the way I think about it and the way I would describe it is like it sounds like you're playing notes that are just not quite what you expect, but they're in between. And that's the way that my first guitar teacher actually explained I think he was showing me a Led Zeppelin thing that showed there's got a bit of an like a sort of Eastern feel to it, and he was like, that's like notes in between notes is the way I always thought about it. So
to talk about your first record, just very briefly, and again, correct me on the pronunciation here. So this
is going to be tough.
Aikatani Malakon, is that right?
Aikadani Malakon. It's very hard to pronounce. We are working on making our music easily pronounceable. No, I'm joking. We're not.
Yeah, don't do that.
The fault is with us. It's not you.
Definitely.
So you recorded the whole thing entirely live, no overdubs, which, having listened to it before I knew that, is astonishing. It's brilliantly recorded and mixed, but the performance, with knowing that there's nothing overdubbed, is astonishing. It really is. to do that, you did this. This is what you were already the collective, but you took up residence at a house in Sakirishmaya.
Yeah.
And just worked on this. Was it 10 days or something? One thing that really struck me about that record, and especially because it's done live, is ironically for a band, silence plays a huge part in the music of SANAM, doesn't it?
Yeah. First off, Chris, man, thanks so much for all the praise. But I'm embarrassed a little bit. Thank you for the praise, man.
I wouldn't have persevered for that many months to get you on, man, if I didn't have a bit of praise.
And thank you for waiting for me so long to get this. I travel tomorrow, by the way. Tomorrow we pick up the tour again. So
I know.
Excited.
Oh, we're going to talk about that very shortly.
Yeah, but thanks for the praise, man. So the record, the first one, I didn't want to make it in a studio because we're quite a bit. The studios in Beirut are tiny and we're 6. I mean, we could fit in a studio, but then it's going to be cramped. And we all have a lot of schedules. And we realized very early on that if we do not stay together all the time, we're not going to make it work. So this is why we take a house like in the middle of nowhere. We can't even go any, kind of trap trap ourselves in this house.
I've done the exact same thing myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right, exactly. With our age, right? I mean, we're no longer in our 20s, so everyone has a million things to do and dogs to walk. So it made more sense for us to do this. And I set up the recording space with minimal miking. I think I had 12 microphones or something. We were we're not going to worry too much about how we're going to mic it or how we just make sure to kind of print it. And then we see when it comes out.
It really doesn't sound like that. Honestly, Anthony, it sounds like you've mic'd it. I mean, that is some Albini level micing that you've done there because it sounds excellent.
It's not me, man. It's Radwan. I'll get to Radwan in a bit. But Radwan is the mixing engineer and the person who produced our second record. But anyway,
Hotel to Tango, Radwan, isn't it?
Yeah. So we said let's do. The idea was let's just make it in a way that I click a button and then we play and then I click a button, right? Not more so than this. So we can just be in the moment and focus on the music and not focus too much on the recording. But I mean, I have to say also the musicians were not what was it? Musers? What was the term?
Musos. Yeah, musos.
We're not that, but I mean, Pascal's been a drummer since he was 15 or something, man. He's been drumming for so long, and Pascal has such a good ear. So Pascal can tune the shittiest kit and make it sound like he has very good ears, and drummers usually don't operate the way he operates. He operates very tonally and texturally, and he has a very specific, very, very special boy, this guy. So he knows how to make a shit drum sounds good. He makes how to I know how to make a room sound okay, so we went into the place. I knew that this is the room we wanted to record in. I knew how to make the room kind of sound okay. But then, it was just that. It was just one mic per, sometimes a couple of maybe 4 microphones on the drums. Sandy was singing with us as we're recording, so not even vocal overdubs. So if I show you the sessions and you listen to the vocal, if you listen to Sandy's voice, there's the whole band and then there's Sandy and their microphone. But getting to it, my thing was let's worry about getting good takes and then we let Radwan worry about making it sound good. And honestly, it's a blessing that we get to do this, and it's very nice of Radwan also to believe so much in us that he let me do this. So because it was a nightmare for him to mix, he put quite a bit of work on it for it to sound the way it does. And Hiba also, the mastering engineer, Hiba Al-Qadri, also put quite a bit of work for it to sound. What I'm trying to say is we're lucky we have friends that are extremely talented who helped us make this record, because it sounds good, not because... I mean, I think that it sounds like what you get in a performance is what you get in a performance, and then the rest is just a varnish or what the rest is just decoration if you want. But I'm wrong. It's not how it is. I'm just a moron. This is not how the world works. The world works is lots of hours of mixing and lots of hours of for it to sound good,
Yeah. But there's a lot of love and attention in that record. There's a lot of beautiful space that's been made in the record itself, and it's clearly a team effort of an album. It's not just a band; it's a whole group of people coming together and kind of working at their
and we know
peak.
when not to play, right? You were talking about silence. I think we've been blessed in knowing when not to play. Like we don't. I think we're six, and we understand that we need to not always be six in a piece, right? You need to And that, the silence part for sure. Everyone's very, very, very aware of if they have nothing to say, that don't really, then just leave space, And if you have something to say, then say it, kind of thing.
So you mentioned going to Cafe Auto. There's a live record from Cafe Auto if people want to hear the band in its kind of most naked kind of form. Great record, great performance. The recent record that came out this year, and it, again, help me with the pronunciation here. Samatu Sotan?
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, that one's easier. There's a somewhere. It's Samatu Sotan, but Samatu Sotan works also.
Okay, so this means I heard a voice. So you recorded this across 3 locations, Beirut, Byblos and Paris. Some of the audience might have heard of that place. At a place called La Frette Studios. Now that was used for Nick Cave did Skeleton Tree there, I think. Arctic Monkeys did that Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino there. Idols did their Ultra Mono album there. Fontaine's DC did Romance. So it's a studio that's kind of on the up. How did you find the experience of recording in Paris? I mean, it must have been quite different for a start from the first album.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. First off, also not only being in Paris, we had Radwan with us this time around. It wasn't, I wasn't recording it myself, Radwan was producing and recording. So that's a huge difference. All across, he was with us in Byblos as well. So that makes, because now you have first of all, you have an extra person in the room. So that completely changes the vibe for the better. And I mean, the first record also, we were kind of inventing the band. So there's always like this kind of naivety, if you want, or this kind of innocence that comes with inventing a band. The second record, now you have some kind of you have to know what you're doing. You have to know what you know. There's a different challenge. I don't know what to call it, but there's a different challenge.
Well, there's expectations at that point. People know what you kind of sound like, and you have to live up to what you achieved the first time. First time, you didn't have anything to live up to.
There's that also, yeah. But Paris, I mean, for sure, La Frette is a proper place. So, I mean, Radwan wanted to do a hi-fi thing, and it was his call. He's like, let's do it more hi-fi this time, and Hiba also. And we're like, yeah, I mean, if you guys want us to do it more hi-fi, we'll try. It was very nice, honestly. La Frette was very, very nice. Olivier, the guy who owns the studio, is a sweetheart, complete sweetheart. And the people who work there, Anthony and Eli, were very, very nice, very nice to be around. We were in a bit of a crunch because we had like 10 days off in a tour, or maybe 6-7 days off, I think even. And we were like, let's record the record in the 6 days off of a tour because we are smart like this. So that was interesting. I don't know how Sandy pulled it off, but Sandy is an incredible singer, so she could pull it off. I have only good memories, honestly, about the place, about how it all went. It was nice to be able to have a little bit of distance from them and then mix them and just do a different thing, because a part of the record was done in Byblos. We did like a bunch of tracks in Byblos, and then we did a bunch of other tracks in Tripoli, in Paris, sorry. And then we were like, let's see how a record could be made. There are still some tracks that never made the cut, a bunch of them that are still somewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah, that we're still also quite excited about. I guess we have a format that allows us to record a lot of music and then to choose. And I like this. We all like this, actually. Like, even on the first record, there are a bunch of stuff that never made the cut that are still somewhere. We like operating in this way. We like being quick and not too anal or not too, you know. Yeah. And if the energy is good, the energy is good. Nothing really beats that for us, you know. If if you feel like the energy is good, really, it's that you have a take. This is how I've been operating for a minute now, at least.
Yeah, I have to say that it's a good way to keep the music fresh for yourself as well. If you're not overworking it and producing it and just constantly redoing it, you're actually, the track still sounds new to you, so it's easier to maintain the enthusiasm and the excitement about it.
Yeah, and not get stuck on things, and not get too tunnel visiony. Tunnel vision is can be a problem. Alhamdulillah, it wasn't for us. And I mean, again, we're lucky. We got interest. I mean, from a very good studio that they were very happy to. We want to work with people who want to work with us. This is what I'm getting at, And and we're very lucky that people Olivier wanted to work with us.
So you mentioned a tour. You're actually midway through 23 autumn dates at the moment, European autumn dates. You're about to leave for part 2 tomorrow, as you said. Is your case packed?
No, of course not.
So coming back to your travels, right? Touring here in the UK, in the West more generally, I think that's fair to say, is jumping in a van and driving city to city. And please excuse the ignorance here, but this is more of a kind of cultural question. What does a tour look like when you're based in the Middle East? You know, where the cultural conservatism maybe and the stability of nearby countries and even just city to city can vary so wildly. Like, how does a tour go in the Middle East? Do you just jump in a van and drive to a show, or is it completely different? And also, how do you tour when the fuel is so expensive as it is in Lebanon right now, for example?
We don't tour in the Middle East. In Lebanon, we don't tour because we live on an island. Like, Lebanon is surrounded by a country that's been at war for 15 years now, Syria, right? Like, well, the war is now over for the past what's been like 6 months now that the war has been over in Syria. But it's not very easy for us to go into Syria, and there's not a lot of shows that happen in Syria anyway. Not a lot of interest for us to be in Syria. Like, there's no interest. There's maybe some interest in Jordan, but going to Jordan, you have to take a plane. You can't go by car because the border with Syria was kind of it wasn't closed, but it wasn't easy to go in, especially for Lebanese people. They wouldn't let you in quickly. And then on the south, we have like I don't know what to call what we have on the south. But,
yeah, I think we've heard about it.
Yeah. So basically, we kind of operate like as if we're on an island. The shows that we do we do like Saida is the south, and then we do Beirut. Beirut is in the middle of Lebanon. Lebanon is like this. You have Saida here, you have Beirut here, and you have Tripoli here. And these are the 3 cities that you kind of do. Beirut is also a very tiny place. It's 200 kilometers, the coast, so it's super tiny. So you never really, you drive to the show in a couple of cars when you have a show. We don't play a lot of shows as SANAM in Lebanon. We do maybe a show a year, or maybe a show every 2 years, like you would do in any other city, I would imagine. But you treat Lebanon kind of a city. I mean, we do a show in Beirut and maybe a show in Tripoli, or maybe a show in Saida. Right now, shows in Saida maybe is not very interesting for us to do because they have different things to worry about in Saida, i.e. the bombings and all of these things. Yeah. So you kind of operate around these. Usually how you do a show in Lebanon, you operate around trying to figure out if the timing will be good. You can never figure out if that will be good or not. A lot of times you do a show and then something happens, so no one shows up, so you just do the show or whatever. Or you wait for the festivals, because we have some festivals that's been happening for a while, and you play the festivals, which could be a little bit safer for you because the festivals will go on maybe unless something really bad happens. So at least for a format like us, it's like this. But you have a lot of also musicians who work day to day. And we also have like day to day musicians in Beirut also that work, that hustle every night, that go every night to a bar or to whatever and play music every other day or every night. And either the jazz crowd or the more traditional, let's say traditional music crowd that does this. And then it's just hustling, man. It's just like any other thing. But most of it would be in Beirut. Maybe 50% of the shows would be around Beirut. Beirut is also very, very tiny. So, but there's a lot of bars, there's a lot of music places, there's a lot of crowds. It's very dense. It's tiny, but it's dense. There's like maybe 2 million people in a very, very tiny place. So that's how it is. But yeah, outside of Lebanon and the Arab world, I've been with other projects. All of us have been to other projects. Unfortunately for SANAM, not a lot of interest. Of course, there is some interest, but it never works out because we're 6. And I mean, going to Egypt would be very expensive for a booker to get us to Egypt. There is no public fundings for this kind of thing, Tunis Tunis is more like maybe more viable. Hopefully we're gonna get to do it in the summer. We'd love to do obviously more of it, but it's not easy. And then there's of course Khalij, like Saudi and Dubai and these cities, but then that's another discussion. The discussion is whether you want to play these places or not before playing them. It's whether you want to or not.
Yeah, can I imagine.
So speaking of tour, you're talking about timings as well. So you played in Canada in June of this year, and you were actually in Montreal on a day off, I believe, between shows when the USA bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities.
It was Sandy's birthday.
Oh, wow. Happy birthday. Special present for Donald Trump. Through, obviously, the Middle East and even more turmoil than it's already in, was there a heavy tone over the show that night? Over the show the next night? Sorry, I think you were playing with Jessica Moss, weren't you? What was the atmosphere like?
It was in Radwan's studio, and it was like a very intimate, like 50, 60 people gig, and we only invited our friends. So it was more like a get together than a. Well, it was a show, obviously, but I mean, it was more. It wasn't like a venue and a big concert. It was like a very intimate show, so that made sense. We were able to work it. We were kind of stressed, so the atmosphere was a little bit somber, but it's with friends. So when it's with friends, it's easier. It's always tougher to be outside of the country when stuff like this happens than to be inside the country. So. But to be honest, the toughest part was when the pagers happened, the pagers attack happened. We were on tour also. We were in Italy when that happened, and that was a little bit. It's anxiety driving. You worry about your parents, man. You worry about the people who are at home. When you're at home, you don't really worry. When we're here, it's not that worrisome. And I don't know why it's funny for me, but it is kind of funny that when you're abroad, you're worried. When you're in Lebanon, you're not worried. But yeah, we kind of got used to it. Kamena also in a morbid way, if you want. Like, this is a very morbid thing, but you kind of get used to it. So it passes. We weren't so terrified when. Obviously, we're more terrified when they bombed Beirut than when they bombed Tehran. And by the time they bombed the nuclear facilities in Tehran, we had an idea of how. I mean, we were still focused on the damage that was done to the south of Lebanon. It didn't feel to us that this is gonna, recreate another kind of bombing campaign towards the south, because the south is destroyed. So you look at it and you wonder, kind of thing, more so than you get worried. But when the pager attack happened, that was very, very worrisome.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, it's interesting to hear that there is a level of, you're a little bit inured to it, that you're not used to it. It's not like you don't notice it, but that it has become a part of your life that, as you're saying, when you're home, it's not even something that particularly worries you. It's really interesting to hear that. It's not a reality we live in. We're very lucky in that sense. I mean, Constellation in general, we spoke a little bit about Radwan. So Radwan Ghazi Mumne?
Yeah, Radwan Ghazi Mumne, yeah.
Yeah, so co-owner of Hotel Tango, along one of the other owners is Ephraim of Godspeed You Black Emperor, Silver Mount Zion. Quite a political label, very outspoken. I mean, Radwan comes from a family who actually fled the Lebanese civil war, I believe. How much did the kind of political factors, the engagement, the activism influence your decision to work with Constellation?
It's not direct. These things are never direct. You have a conversation and you immediately feel something, I guess. It's not like I know what they're involved in, obviously. I know about their work, but what really affected us taking the decision is just having a talk with them. You just have a talk with people and you figure out that where they're coming from, and whether, because a lot of it can be performative also, man, and when it's performative, it's kind of worse. So no, obviously they're not that. Obviously they're very kind people, and we felt like we're being treated with kindness and with belief, and they believe in what we do. So. But I mean, of course, we can't work with a label that is not in line with our politics. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that's also outside. Like, that was a no-brainer. And I mean, we're lucky, as I said before, we're lucky that we have people that are talented, that are interested in us, in our work, and it happens like this. So if they happen to be kind and they see us, then it ticks all the marks. It ticks the political way. Obviously, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
We've been tokenized quite a bit, also, Chris. Like, you in where we come from, there's a radar. You can feel who's tokenizing you and who's kind to you and who can see you. You can feel it immediately.
I think that's an interesting point, because I mean, being frank, we in certainly Western Europe primarily hear about Beirut and Lebanon in the context of war and internal strife. The artistic and the cultural scene is hardly discussed, and there are simply not many Lebanese musical voices that are represented in the West. And I think it'd be so few people to actually speak to about this, it must invite a lot of the same questions for yourself when you're doing interviews. And I'm doing that right now, so I'm guilty of that. But I would suggest that here in SANAM, both musically and in conversation as we are just now, I think it's really important for Westerners, because when a country is almost fetishized for its turmoil, we perhaps need reminded that Lebanon is diverse and that its people are, they have diverse opinions, that they like many of the same things we do. They experience remarkably similar everyday emotions. And I think clearly the band didn't ask for this job, but do you find yourselves or see yourselves as cultural ambassadors of some, level, for better or worse? Or would you reject that role? You don't want that sort of responsibility?
No, I can't say that we want to represent the whole population in some way. I mean, I'm happy to archive some of the songs that we archive, like this in this sense, yeah, sure, in the archival sense for sure. But I mean, in the political sense, I don't think we are meant to represent the whole of the region. We are also weirdos, man. Honestly, we're not. Don't think we're very much assimilated anywhere, right? We're musicians, so we're kind of weirdos too. Whether be it in the West or be it at home, eh?
Yeah, you're a window for a lot of people, though. I mean, you're a window for me. It's informative reading about the band and getting context that's a lot more nuanced than the war pictures, or the cues or the explosions. It's important, I think, to have countries fleshed out in more of a 3D image of these people rather than just plight.
Yeah, it's not. It's if this is bestowed, this is what I meant in an archival sense. This is exactly what I said. Let's have some media about this. Let's archive some media about this.
One thing I'm really sad about that came up in a bit of a tangent when I was reading about you is that we'd never been made aware of the kick queen. This Malak Alayoui, the woman who kicked the cop because he was about to open fire in a crowd. This was a piece of cultural trivia I'd never heard about. So I now have this in my arsenal just from reading kind of tangential articles. So yeah, in that way, you're exposing me to information and insight that I hadn't had before, and I hope other people will.
Yeah, but I mean, Chris, also it's your effort, right? You're a curious guy, and so this also, it's we're both doing this together. So you're a curious person. You're doing the effort. I don't expect everyone to do the effort, and I think what's expected of me is a part of it is, unfortunately, still I'm an entertainer, and a part of it is to make good music and throw a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do not want to give the impression. I mean, the music is undeniably mournful in places, but it's certainly not morose. In fact, on that note, I think I read somewhere that you had said food was a really big part of your inspiration, not just band life. Is that right?
Yeah, sorry for... it's funny that I like how we're the tone of the conversation shifts, but we have a chef with us. Pascal is like a chef, a trained chef.
Oh wow.
And we are obsessed with food, so you can imagine the kind of pain we go through when we come to the UK.
Yeah,
apologies in advance. You do just need a good tour guide though, because there is great food, especially in Scotland. It's not what you'll typically be given. That's the problem.
To be fair, Kim has always, the person who we work with in Glasgow, Kim has always been great with her recommendations. To be fair, Glasgow has been the best part. But I mean, we're obsessed with this. We worry more about what we're eating than sound check at times. It's a bit nuts, but I mean, it's what you can control, kind of thing. I think a part of it is honestly now to shift back the tone into something like more morose. I think it's like a traumatic response to whatever, kind of that you get so attached to having a healthy meal and eating the food that and you miss it a lot. I'm constantly thinking this is what brings me back home the most. I don't know if it's the same for you guys when you're abroad, but for us it's because what we do is we cook ourselves, and we have a system where we cook during sound check. The people who are not sound checking, they're cooking. So we have lunch next day, whatever they cooked in the kitchen of the venue. This is what we do. And then we store the food, we try to make cold meals and we store them and then we have them the next day. And that's the thing that brings us closest to home. And I mean, traveling is a lot of fun and adventure and all of this, but it gets kind of homesick, man, especially when your country is fucked. So...
well, I have to say, one of the reputations that Lebanon has, and this is with somebody who's never been there, is that it's famed for the amount of pride that the people take in their hospitality. So I can imagine that eating together is a very, very prominent part of that culture. It's actually not as big a part of our culture. It really isn't. although Scotland's a very warm, people, I think, sometimes over familiar. That's why English and German people tend to get a bit intimidated. But the whole kind of togetherness over meals, I don't think that's quite as emphasised here as it seems to be with you. So I can completely understand why that's a very comforting and reassuring thing to do, even when you're away from home.
And I have to say, like, this is not to blow your steam or because you guys are interviewing us or anything, but Scotland is not, for us, it's not the UK, it's something else, honestly, for me and for the rest of the band.
You're saying all the right things.
Yeah.
And talking about reputations and sort of like perceptions of Lebanon, so I guess into the 21st century, as I understood it, Lebanon, Beirut in particular, attracted people from nearby, especially Jordan. There are some folks in Edinburgh who are from Jordan who, in their younger days used to travel in for music and events, a place to party. The music and the arts scene was healthy. I mean, I've personally, from friends, heard about the metal scene in Beirut, bars and clubs, places like Rockstars, I believe, Nova and Cherries. And Rockstars was owned by a guy called Jean-Pierre Haddad, a kind of bar that would play My Dying Bride and frequented by metalheads. And Jean-Pierre, he was a member of a metal band called Chimera. This is just for listeners' benefits. We've spoken about this on the show before. Successful enough to tour outside of Lebanon and Europe, along with bands like Blackheum and Chaotion. And Jean-Pierre actually died in 2022. We mentioned it at the time on a show. He was very young. And I do understand that the death sent some ripples around the scene there. How aware were you and how integrated is the Beirut music scene? Is there a lot of mixing between bands and audiences of different genres? Because we see that a lot in Glasgow. Our genres really overlap a lot. There are not huge kind of hard and fast lines between them. Is that the case?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, there you go. SANAM is a very good example of this. I mean, I come from like an experimental background, not background, but I mean, this is the kind of work that I do. And Farah and Sandy are more in the other thing, and then the boys are more in the rock thing. And all of us meet all the time, be it in the band or be it because we're making music together, or if we weren't making music together, we would have been hanging out constantly together. Same goes for the metal scene, but maybe a little bit more so the phenomena for us in Beirut is that metal attracts more of the younger crowd. And then with the older crowd, it's usually kind of like more, let's say, a tangent of metal, if I'm allowed to say this, like maybe something more, let's say, black metal or something of the kind that would attract maybe an older crowd than a younger one. So the younger bands, which there are plenty of younger metal bands, they're still doing their thing and figuring out their thing. But I mean, as soon as you get into the thrash metal or punk, then we're hanging out all together. Then it gets back to this thing where the ravers and the ambient kids and the experimental kids and the tangent of rock kids and the tangent of metal kids and the Arabic kids, like we kind of all hang, and even the jazz kids, we kind of all hang out together. And we kind of all work together, and there's a lot of inbreeding, and it's nice. And there's not a lot of... There's always this attitude also in Beirut. If someone is kind of successful, then they kind of cheated. If like they're cheating in some way, like either they have no principles or they, like some weird thing that I'm pretty sure probably something might be similar. And I know something is similar in Ireland because I have Irish friends who would say the same, let's say, for Fontaine DC.
It's very relatable. Yeah. We have a thing about the culture here is that people don't get what we call too big for their boots. So your family will always bring you back down to earth if you're being successful. And as a result, there's more of an attitude here. This is according to people who are quite famous, I believe. I think Scarlett Johansson spoke about this once, about feeling very normal in Glasgow because people don't want to treat you too differently because they don't want you to think you're better than them. So yeah, I think there's something similar going on there where it keeps people much more on a par. There's less of a celebration of celebrity, if you know what I mean.
Which is good in some extent and it's bad in another extent because sometimes they celebrate a lot, like like the business techno thing has its own thing in Beirut, like the dance music is divided in between like the traditional dance stuff, which is fun, and then the ravers thing, which is also fun, and then you have the business techno thing, which is like Jesus. So not that.
That's interesting because Beirut was really famous for its techno scene, especially in that area. I mean, it was a place, was it called the Grand Factory Club? That's quite celebrated. There was a documentary on the BBC about that over here. And I know that they experienced a lot of trouble in recent years. They were relying on generators and they had a constant struggle with things like water and trash and the problems with infrastructure. I mean, Beirut obviously was referred to as the Paris of the Middle East for a long time, but in a lot of ways, especially the techno scene, it felt a bit more like Berlin. But see the influx of people that used to attract. I was talking about them coming from Jordan. Is that still there, or has it waned in the declines?
Oh, it's still there. No, it's still there. It waned and then it transformed. Things transform, but the business techno thing is still there. There's still people find money in this country. I don't get it. Like people just make money out of thin air. So no, it's still very big. It's good and bad, if you want my opinion. It's good because of the touristy thing, right? And because it brings in people. And I mean, you have to keep in mind that there is no rave culture in Jordan whatsoever. Eh? These kids.
Yeah. It's much more conservative, isn't it?
Yeah, these kids are not. They're not exposed to this at all, completely. So yeah, of course, Beirut to them is, I guess, like a kind of haven in that sense. Now Saudi has been like very pushing this kind of thing, but I mean, you can't push these things. These things have to, for me, the way I see it, these scenes have to grow organically. Even if you have millions and you pump millions into like a scene, it's not really a scene. It's just these massive stages that are supposed to like I don't know what it is. It's odd. Like you can Google it and you tell me what it is. If you find meaning in it, I don't find meaning in it.
Can I ask you quite a general question here? Sorry, it's just something popped into my head that you mentioned earlier on, and it seems like a bit of an elephant in the room. But in regards to the port explosion, what impact did that have on the kind of cultural spaces and events at the time? Because you said that a lot of people actually decided to move after that.
Yeah, a lot of places got like literally destroyed because where the port is, again, Beirut is very tiny, so where the port is, it's very close to everything. So a lot of places got smashed to bits, and a lot of people lost their businesses. A lot of money was funneled in from the USA. So a lot of people were able to build back from donations and stuff of the kind. How it affected, I think it's in a mindset more so than in a space. A lot of people left. Yeah, a lot of people left. I think before the blast, there was more of a whatever thing happening in Beirut. I think in Beirut before the blast, you could probably find maybe 8 venues a night. Maybe more. What am I talking about? Maybe way more than 8, 9. I'm talking 8 concerts. I'm talking alternative concerts. Not all concerts, just alternative music. Wow, it's so populated. It's crazy. There are so many things happening all the time because it's very dense. So now there's less of that, but there's always something. Like tonight, there's a cine concert from my Snakeskin, my partners in the studio who right now they're playing a cine concert, let's say. And a cine concert is also like very alternative, the E for Beirut, So there's still a lot of it that's happening. But I think what's palpable for me is that there's a mindset amongst artists that happened after the blast that we, like this thing that I was telling you about, that people have, like, they don't like if someone's successful. Now it became more after the blast was like, if someone does well, we all do well kind of thing. Like there's this sense of solidarity that artists see that is way more palpable after the blast than before the blast, where people, like, there's definitely way more help that, like, we don't fuck each other over. Like there was more fucking each other over and shark mentalities over a piece that's this big usually, like now this decompressed a lot for the worst reasons, but I mean we're glad it decompressed a bit because there was a lot of like competition is good and it's bad, and it was more focused on the bad in Beirut, and I feel now like it's good. Like now I feel like if someone puts a good record, pushes everyone to put out a good record, it doesn't push poison and spite and things like that like it used to 15 years ago. Because I mean we had a huge band from Beirut. I don't know if you've heard of them, Mashru' Layla. They were a very, very big band.
actually was just about to bring them up in a conversation, so that's good timing.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, so Mashrou' Layla was very much like, not very much, of course, like people loved a lot of, they have a huge following in Lebanon, but like amongst the artists, people were like, instead of learning something from the, instead of realizing like that there's something to learn, there's always something that you can take from what I don't like something to learn. They're my friends, so obviously I wasn't a part of the bitter crowd. Should we call it the bitter crowd? Maybe the bitter crowd is the term.
Bitter crowd, yeah.
But you don't have, so let's say you don't have much of this anymore. There's still always people are going to be at bitter all the time, but after the blast, it decompressed a lot. And I mean, Mashrou' Layla got it very bad, like they got handed like a big turd, like a huge turd. And them being cancelled in Egypt was very taxing on them, and the suicide that followed. I don't know if I should say this term. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So I was actually going to bring that. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the cultural shift. So Mashrou' Layla, Lebanese kind of indie pop group with an openly gay singer, Hamid Sino.
Yeah,
is it Sino?
Yeah, that's it.
Sino.
Yeah.
There's actually you can see a film. We're going to link a whole load of things under this episode that we've referenced here. There's a film called Beirut Dreams in Colour that talks about this story. For example, they had a song called The Smell of Jasmine, which is arguably the first gay love song, I think, in the Arab world. They basically announced a split following a campaign of, as you say, protracted harassment and threats to their safety, mainly due to Hamid being openly gay. They also cited the suicide of a young woman called Sarah Higazi, who had initially been jailed and tortured by Egyptian state forces, police, for unfurling a rainbow flag at a concert they held in Cairo, and she developed PTSD and took her own life after that. Now, I read a little bit by, is it Helm? Is that the LGBTQ organisation? Helm, right. So it started in Beirut, based in the Middle East, biggest LGBTQ plus organisation, and they're saying that they feel there is a steady rise in attacks on the LGBTQ community. I mean, I wanted to ask you a little bit about religiosity as well, because I did see accounts that said that amongst the youth, religiosity was declining, and even though Lebanon is more liberal than its neighbours, it's still quite conservative compared to Western Europe. Do you think religiosity is on the decline with the younger generation?
Oh, sure.
How have those changes impacted upon LGBTQ lifestyles and the scene? Is Lebanon going backwards in that sense? Is it going forwards? How do you see that situation?
Well, there's one thing to keep in mind, that religiosity didn't exist in Lebanon before the civil war. Before the
from 75 to 90,
before the obvious threat that the Israelis were putting on the region, the religiosity wasn't a thing. My parents grew up in a fashion where they shared schools with Muslims and Jews and Druze, and no one knew who was what, and it was not a thing. This became a thing after the war in 70s because of...
I mean, Beirut was effectively divided, wasn't it? You've got a Muslim section and a Christian section.
But it's way more mixed. It's way more mixed now because the war happened and it passed. But I mean, religiosity in Beirut is like a tool. It's something that just people bring up. Beirut is such a small place that you need 200 thugs and you can like make legislation. With 200 thugs, you can change the country. No joke. Is that small?
Is this to do with the fact that so many of the people that were part of the civil war, the warlords and stuff, managed to they avoided any prosecution and sort of got into power as a result?
Of course, and because I mean they have this. If each of them have 200 thugs, then they can close the city off, and then if you close the city off, then then you close the banks, and if you close the banks, then there's you can close the economy with 200-300 people. No joke. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but maybe it's 500 people. You know what I mean? It's not like. So you don't need an army, and we don't even have a good army anyway to begin with, or like a functional army or whatever you want to call it.
And ultimately, these people are not capable politicians in terms of being able to actually operate a society. So therefore, by 2019, things are in such a bad state. Just for folks listening to this show that aren't maybe completely up to date on this kind of stuff, There's what's called the WhatsApp revolution, where the kind of straw that broke the camel's back was this tax that they tried to bring in on people using WhatsApp, and that was it, because the people were already struggling to just put food on their tables, and it led to a revolution in 2019. But you have people in charge there that seem totally inept. I'm just curious as to how, because the people that suffer are often the marginalised communities in situations like that. And what is life like for the LGBTQ plus community now compared to then? Is it getting any better or is it getting harder?
Well, it depends. I mean, we have drag shows, so there is the presence of that, which for me is a good thing. But at the same time, we have like an insurgence in something called the Jnud al-Rab, which means the soldiers of God, which is like a hyper right-wing macho men who are like probably all like closeted anyway, and they're very, very homophobic that work against this without any legislation. They do it just from because it's a thugs thing. Beirut is a thugs thing. In law, you're not allowed. Homosexual marriage is not allowed by law. But I mean, if you were to talk about it culturally, my parents who are in their 70s have gay friends, and my parents are conservative. So the way I see it is that, of course, there is prosecution. I'm not taking away any of the struggles. But the thing is, these things are cards that are played politically. It's something that they bring up right now to either pass some kind of legislation or to make turmoil on a specific thing. But I have a feeling that it's a wave thing. Right now it was worse after 2020. It was worse for the LGBT community because of this insurgence of these guys, these thugs called the Jnud al-Rab, which are basically bodyguards for this fucking banker, right? Who's trying to create a political party by having thugs. But this is how it started. You get like 20 thugs, then they become 100 thugs with a specific ideology that is bullshit, and then these kids become unhandleable, and then you become a part of like politics by having kids that are unhandleable. It's like a mafia thing, right? This is how it operates. But now the focus that these thugs had was on the LGBT community, and that happened after 2020. I'm not sure if it's 2019 or 2020. I mean, we felt them a lot after COVID. They started like showing up to like, let's say, a drag show and shutting it down. But this is like, I feel like this is a wave of things that you will never know why it will dissipate. You will never know why it will dissipate, because at the same time, we have NGOs that are very functional. We have NGOs that have been working for a minute now, that have systems and that have networks and that can get shit done. And it's hard to say if it's better or worse, but it's definitely always doing this, and then 5 years people don't pay attention to it, and then 5 years it gets a lot worse. But for me, I'm a weirdo, but I mean, I have long hair and I don't get a lot of well, I do get sometimes catcalled, but I mean, it's hard to say, man. It's hard to say. It's not better, but it's not. I don't know if it's worse, but it's definitely not better. The Mashru' Layla thing was a political thing, also. The Mashru' Layla thing, they wanted to take control of a festival, so they scapegoated them, and there was a festival that Mashru' Layla were supposed to play, and they scapegoated Mashru' Layla, and then they got the festival director hired. And if you were to ask my opinion, I think a big part of it was to fire the technical director of the artistic director of this festival, because this festival takes like more than $1 million fund from the government to operate, and they wanted the $1 million to not go to this person, to go to another political party. So you scapegoat someone, and then you have like thugs ruin their lives. Wow. And then no one wins from this. It's just pure loss. It's a pure loss game, except some political party gets like some kind of then another political party curates the festival to get like a fucking Metallica cover band to play you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, this is how Lebanon operates. I went on a tangent. Wow. I got a little bit upset.
No, tangents welcome. You remember we told you that before. We're more than happy to hear you take the conversation in those directions. On that note, we are kind of winding down here, and clearly we were going to talk about, tell people to go and listen to your stuff, and they can access it on various platforms. We will do that shortly. However, it brought one last thing to my attention, and it's a subject that we've spoken about in this show at length on a couple of occasions, especially recently, and it's to do with streaming platforms and sort of like ethical aspects of streaming platforms. Now, your album's on Constellation, and Constellation as we said, known for their kind of political engagement, not least of all through Godspeed You Black Emperor. They've spoken out on BDS boycott, divestment, sanctions. Godspeed refused to play in Israel quite early on, although, and we've been critical of them because they then did tour in China despite the persecution of the Uyghurs at the time, which I think was a little bit inconsistent. As much as I like Godspeed, as much as I like a lot of things they stand for, I don't think they got that entirely right.
Yeah.
But the point is, Godspeed removed their content from Spotify following the controversy around Daniel Ek's investment in tech, military tech, sorry. But a lot of the Constellation catalogue remains on there, and I can only assume that Constellation have basically agreed to let the bands make their own decisions on that front. Mark and I are kind of on the record here as thinking that so many of the tech platforms are so problematic that actually just making a stance against one is, as you put it earlier on, it's maybe slightly, it's posture and it doesn't seem entirely sincere. Your stuff can be found on Spotify. I personally have no issue with that. I'm just curious about what are your thoughts about it, given the political content of the music and, you know, the implications of Daniel Ek and things like that. How did you guys have that conversation with each other, and did you have a conversation with the label about that at all?
Of course, yeah, of course. This is a constant conversation. The thing is, I think I have an opinion that is a little bit radical on this, so I want to take them off all of the platforms. I want to take all of my music off all of the platforms, not only, but
that does feel more consistent. I'll be honest. I think your stance in that, whilst it is radical, this is what we spoke about in that other show, was that so many of the platforms, I mean, we went into some depth as to the ownership. Mark, maybe you can sort of divulge that a bit better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the way that we kind of put it when we were doing that episode is that there is no equitable streaming service. There is no way that artists are getting paid fairly and getting compensation in any streaming service, regardless, because the model of it is fundamentally broken, right? So I do agree with what you're saying there, Chris.
But
right?
also where they're investing their money. So it's not just Spotify that are guilty of developing military tech.
Oh, yeah. So, like, obviously, well, I say obviously, if you listen to the episode, it's obvious, but if you haven't, then, you know, Google heavily invested in military tech and are responsible for, like, the AI software that's being used by Israeli military to, you know, bomb people using drones, using AI, you know. And Meta are also been implicated because of their partnership with Andrew, who are owned by Palmer Luckey, who used to be a member of Meta when they bought Oculus, and that's a military company that is supplying multiple governments like weapons. So yeah, so it's not a clean cut thing.
So I guess the point being, Anthony, that your stance does almost makes more sense to me, really, as a philosophy, because if you come off one, what's the argument that's keeping you on the other? And
there's one called Anghami. To be fair, I'm not being paid to market them, but there's an Arab platform called Anghami that's been running for quite a minute now. That seems to be the cleanest. You can look them up. Also, I'm not sure if they are, but I know some kids who work there, and they seem to be like the cleanest. But I mean. Yeah, so the thing is, okay, what are we hoping to achieve? If we're hoping to achieve, this is the question that I get at. What are we hoping to achieve in this? Is we're hoping to achieve me sleeping comfortably on my bed.
A clean conscience, yeah.
Yeah, it's not good enough for me. The clean conscious thing is not good enough for me. So I think we need to do more. Personally, I think it needs to be like I don't want to talk too much about this, but like, because this is what Constellation are also doing. I think the thing is to like organize enough and talk about it enough so enough people go out. So let's say, for example, right now SANAM goes out of Spotify and all of these platforms. We will reach maybe a couple of thousand of people with this news, and we will be probably the news will just dissipate without any consequence. What I think is admirable from the Godspeed perspective is that you guys are nerds and I'm a nerd, so we know about this. A lot of people don't know about this. So there's the awareness part also that like for example, this is a very good and weird example. My sister took off Spotify after reading this. I didn't even know my sister has Spotify. I've never had any of these platforms. I'm an old school guy. I have records and I steal records.
That's interesting.
And the way I treat my fans, is either buy a record, or if you don't have the price for a record, I'll send you a download link.
Yeah.
Like, this is how I operate. I don't care if now the label people are gonna hear me and be upset with me, but this is how I operate. I'd rather people steal the very, very controversial view also, but I'd rather people steal the music than stream it. This is my personal perspective. Because if they steal it, no one makes money. If they stream it, then some fucking asshole makes money, but it's not the band, it's not the label. It's people like Daniel Ackman and like the military industrial complex that's making money. So what I would say is just steal the music. But again, these are controversial reviews. Buy the records or steal the music. Or like Bandcamp is great, obviously. I mean, thank fucking God for Bandcamp.
Yeah, I think this is the one that we would be pointing people to when we're going to link your music. That'll be where it is, because you also get the biggest, revenue back into the band from that site to sort of help with sustainability of the project.
Yeah, this is like, it's Bandcamp and it's selling records. Honestly, selling records is still, to this day, for a band like ours, it's still, and I'm pretty sure for many other bands, is what like it's actually the merchandise that makes us it's playing shows and selling records. It's not only playing shows. It got to a time where it was only playing shows where it would make you money, but then after this resurgence of records, now selling records makes you money. And then you can have and then we can go into another tangent and talk about like the implications of printing so much records and printing so much plastic and the kind of waste it does to the environment. But then I'm getting bombed, man, right? Like I smell concrete from here. If we open the window, we're going to breathe concrete, from the city. So I don't need to be lectured on being what was it on this protecting the planet thing. This is a huge pile of bullshit. if you're talking to me, we were on this tour. Like this is a funny story. We were on this tour that apparently was funded by the EU. For a bunch of dates, there was some funding from the EU. Okay. So then we go on this interview, and then they're like, "How do you guys feel that you're being like that? What do you guys think about like this environmental thing that the EU has brought in, to fund these bands to go and play these shows that are next to each other, so there's less carbon waste or whatever, like not taking trains or airplanes." And I couldn't help, like I snapped, I couldn't answer with a straight face, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like using a bunch of trains, we have there's tons and tons of destinations that are happening. You're talking to like we're seriously talking about protecting the planet. The sea is so polluted from all the bombing. There are no more fucking fish in the sea. You're seriously talking to me about like me fucking taking a van is gonna make the difference now? Like I don't know how many Hiroshimas happened last year. We're talking about the fucking airplane right now.
As you said earlier on, you used the word performative, and it is a lot of it so performative. Without trying to sound too jaded, clearly the aims are positive, but it's so inconsistent. Yeah.
And it's a little bit tone deaf to speak to an Arab about about the EU, like the French, the biggest producers after the United States of weapons, they're talking to me about their conscience with the fucking environment. Well, fuck yourself.
Well, as Anthony says, one of the best ways to help this excellent band continue and stay, financially stable is to go and see them, is to go and buy stuff off them, even better. SANAM are playing the Flying Duck in Glasgow on the 1st of December, part of Pop Mutations. But listeners elsewhere, and there are plenty of you, look out for shows very soon in France, Belgium, Italy. There's a bunch of other UK dates, Bristol, South Coast.
South Coast? What part
Brighton.
of Brighton? Yeah.
Aye. So go and check out their listings. You can get them on Instagram, all the usual things. You don't need us to plug social media. And Samatu Sotan is out now on Constellation Records. I would strongly suggest you go and at least listen to it on Bandcamp. If not, buy it from them or the label. Anthony, it's been a real pleasure. I'm really pleased we managed to make it happen in the end. I realise you're 2 hours ahead of us. You're probably getting a bit tired, and you've got a big day ahead of you because you're travelling again. So honestly, the deepest thanks from us. I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the 1st of December. I will be there for that show.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, thanks guys for the plug, and and thanks for the conversation. And I don't know if I should apologize for getting upset, but
no, absolutely not.
Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. No, you were very measured. Don't worry about it, man. Just travel safe and please pass on our regards to the rest of the band. Wishing you all the best and looking forward to that show.
Sure, guys.
Mark, do we know what we're doing next week? Or are we going to keep that a secret?
The secret.
Right, we're keeping it a secret. That's the code that we
That's the
use
code
for
We've
underprepared.
no idea what we're doing. Yeah.
Trying to pin down another interview. But no, we will be doing something next week, and hopefully you'll join us for that. Thanks again, Anthony. Thanks again, Mark. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for having me.
I'm here on a job site with Tim, who owns his own electrical contracting business.
3 employees and 2 work trucks.
Tim traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance. We're positively here where he needs us most.
They sure are.
With step-by-step help on all his insurance needs, all for shockingly low rates.
Shockingly low, huh?
Just a little bit of electrician humour. Do you get it?
I got it.
You know, it feels like we have a real connection. All right, I'll stop.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.
Did you know you can save up to 70% on the best brands just by shopping at FromRebel.com? We're talking about strollers, car seats, high chairs, espresso machines, cookware, everything you need for way less. Here's how it works. Every single day, Rebel drops thousands of new products on the site for up to 70% off. It is a constant stream of endless deals from top brands like UPPAbaby, Nuna, Baby Bjorn, Breville, Nespresso, KitchenAid, Le Creuset, and more. But you have to act fast because every deal is one of a kind. So if you see something you love, make sure you add to cart fast. So stop paying full price when you don't have to. Whether it's baby gear, kitchen upgrades, or a treasure for your home you didn't know you needed, Rebel has it for way less, up to 70% less. Shop from Rebel.com and save big.